Every day, something is trying to control you. A message, an insult, a delay, someone's opinion, a problem you didn't create. And every time you react without thinking, you hand your power away. The Stoics understood something most people never learn. You cannot control what happens, but you can control what happens inside you. Discipline begins when you stop reacting to everything. You pause, you observe, you choose. And from that moment forward, other people no longer control your mind. Chapter 1. Stop giving everything access to your mind. You are surrounded by things demanding your attention. Messages, notifications, opinions, arguments, problems, other people's moods, other people's expectations. And if you are not careful, you will spend your entire day responding to things that never deserved a response in the first place. That is the first problem. You think your biggest challenge is controlling your emotions. It is not. Your first challenge is controlling what gets access to your mind. Because whatever gets your attention gets a piece of your life. And most people give that piece away far too easily. Someone sends an irritating message, you react. Someone criticizes you, you react. Someone ignores you, you react. Someone succeeds while you are struggling, you compare yourself, you react. Someone disagrees with you online, you feel the need to prove yourself. You react again. And then you wonder why you feel mentally exhausted at the end of the day. You are exhausted because your mind has been open to everything, every opinion, every interruption, every provocation, every emotional disturbance. You have allowed the outside world to knock on the door of your mind, and you have answered every single time. That ends here. Not everything deserves your attention. Not everything deserves your energy. Not everything deserves a response. You have a choice. That is the discipline. Not everything deserves a reaction. Imagine receiving a message from someone who clearly intends to provoke you. You read it. Your body reacts immediately. Your heart beats faster. Your jaw tightens. Your mind starts constructing a response. You begin typing. You want them to understand that they were wrong. You want them to know that you are not weak. You want the last word. So you send the message. Then they respond. Now you send another. They respond again. 30 minutes later, you are still arguing with someone who may not even matter to your life. What happened? The original message took seconds. Your reaction took 30 minutes. The event was small. Your attention made it enormous. This is how people lose control, not because the world is always powerful, but because they keep giving small events unlimited access to their minds. Epictetus built much of his philosophy around a distinction that remains brutally relevant today. There is a difference between what happens and what you decide about what happens. An event arrives, then your mind interprets it. Then your emotions respond to that interpretation. Then your behavior follows. That sequence matters. Because there is a space between the event and your response, that space is where discipline lives. Someone insults you, that is an event. Deciding that you must defend your ego immediately is a choice. Someone rejects you, that is an event. Deciding that rejection proves you are worthless is an interpretation. Someone succeeds, that is an event. Deciding that their success means you are falling behind is a mental story. The event is not always yours to control. Your interpretation deserves examination. Your response belongs to you. Pause before you react. Say it again. Pause before you react. You do not need to respond at the speed of your emotions. You do not need to answer every accusation. You do not need to correct every misunderstanding. You do not need to defend yourself against every opinion. You have a choice, and sometimes the strongest choice is to do nothing. That is not weakness. That is control. Build a mental gatekeeper. You need a gatekeeper inside your mind, a mental filter, a system that decides what deserves your attention and what does not. Because if you do not decide what enters your mind, other people will decide for you. The next time something triggers you, ask 3 questions. First, is this within my control? Second, does this actually matter? Third, what response serves my character? These 3 questions can change the way you move through your entire day. Imagine a coworker makes a passive-aggressive comment. You hear it. Your first instinct is to respond. You want to expose their behavior. You want to make it clear that you noticed. Stop. Is this within your control? Their attitude is not. Their intention is not. Their opinion of you is not. What is within your control? Your conduct, your words, your professionalism, your decision to continue doing your work. Now ask, does this actually matter? Will this comment affect your responsibilities? Will addressing it improve the situation? Or are you simply reacting because your ego feels attacked? Then ask the final question. What response serves your character? Maybe the answer is to address it calmly. Maybe the answer is to ignore it. Maybe the answer is to establish a boundary. The answer is not always silence. The answer is always deliberate action. That distinction matters. Stoicism does not teach you to become passive. It teaches you to stop becoming a slave to impulse. Filter it. Observe first. Choose deliberately. Do not let someone else's emotional state become your emotional state. If someone is angry, you do not have to become angry. If someone is impatient, you do not have to become impatient. If someone is insecure, you do not have to defend yourself against their insecurity. If someone wants a reaction, you do not have to provide one. You have a choice. That is the discipline, and the more you practice it, the stronger the gatekeeper becomes. Attention is a limited resource. Now understand something even deeper. Your attention is not infinite. Every argument consumes attention. Every unnecessary comparison consumes attention. Every notification interrupts attention. Every emotional replay consumes attention. Every imaginary conversation consumes attention. And attention is connected to behavior. Scattered attention produces scattered behavior. If your mind is constantly jumping from one emotional disturbance to another, you cannot expect yourself to build anything meaningful. You cannot focus deeply while constantly checking who said what. You cannot become disciplined while allowing every notification to interrupt you. You cannot build confidence while constantly monitoring how other people perceive you. You cannot become mentally strong while making your emotional state dependent on external noise. Your attention is your life. Think about that. Your attention is your life. Where your attention goes, your hours go. Where your hours go, your life goes. So protect your attention. Marcus Aurelius lived at the center of an enormous amount of pressure. He was responsible for an empire. He faced political instability, military conflict, disease, personal loss, constant demands from other people. Yet the Stoic discipline he practiced repeatedly brought him back to a simple question. What is my task right now? That question is powerful. Not, what are they saying about me? Not, what might happen tomorrow? Not, why did they treat me this way? Not, how can I prove them wrong? What is my task right now? That is where your power returns. You are working. Work. You are exercising. Exercise. You are with your family. Be there. You are solving a problem. Solve it. You are resting. Rest. Stop allowing your mind to live in 10 different places at once. Protect your attention. Your attention is your life. Do not spend it everywhere. And here is your practical assignment. For the next 7 days, do not immediately respond to emotional triggers. When something irritates you, pause. When someone criticizes you, pause. When you receive a message that makes you angry, pause. When you feel jealous, pause. When you feel the urge to prove yourself, pause. Then ask, is this within my control? Does this matter? What response serves my character? You may discover something uncomfortable. You may discover that many of the things you react to are not actually important. You were not defending your principles. You were defending your ego. You were not solving a problem. You were feeding a reaction. You were not protecting yourself. You were surrendering your attention. Recognize that and change it. Because emotional mastery does not begin when you finally eliminate every difficult emotion. It begins when you stop giving every emotion authority over your behavior. You can feel anger without obeying anger. You can feel insecurity without acting from insecurity. You can feel disappointment without becoming disappointment. You can feel provocation without providing the reaction someone wanted. You have a choice. Always. The Stoics knew this. Now you do too. Your mind is not a public building. Not everyone gets access. Not every event gets a reaction. Not every opinion deserves consideration. Not every problem deserves your energy. Become selective. Become deliberate. Become difficult to disturb. Because the person who controls their attention begins to control their reactions. And the person who controls their reactions begins to control their life. So protect your attention. Filter the noise. Pause before you react. Observe before you speak. Choose deliberately. You do not need to respond to everything. You need to respond to what matters. And once you learn to decide what deserves access to your mind, the next question becomes unavoidable. What exactly is within your control? And what must you finally learn to release? Chapter 2. Master the Dichotomy of Control. There is a line running through your life. On one side of that line are the things you can influence. On the other side are the things you cannot. Most people suffer because they spend their lives crossing that line. They try to control people. They try to control outcomes. They try to control timing. They try to control opinions. They try to control the past. They try to control what happens next. And when reality refuses to obey them, they react. They become angry. They become anxious. They become frustrated. They become desperate. But the problem is not always what happened. The problem is that they are trying to control something that never belonged to them. This is where Stoic discipline becomes practical. The ancient Stoics understood a simple truth. You become calmer when you stop fighting for control over things that were never yours. Control what is yours. Release what is not. That is the key. Divide reality into two worlds. Look at your life carefully. There are things you can control: your decisions, your effort, your preparation, your words, your behavior, your standards, your judgments, your willingness to act. And there are things you cannot fully control: other people's opinions, other people's choices, other people's moods, other people's timing, the economy, the weather, the past, the final outcome of many situations, whether someone likes you, whether someone stays, whether someone understands you, whether someone gives you the opportunity you wanted. These two categories exist whether you acknowledge them or not. The problem is that most people spend more energy on the second category than the first. Consider a job interview. You prepare. You study the company, you practice your answers, you arrive early, you perform well, you give everything you have. Then another candidate gets the position. Now what? You can spend the next 3 days thinking, they should have chosen me. I was more qualified. The interviewer didn't understand me. This is unfair. Maybe it was unfair. Maybe it wasn't. But none of those thoughts change the result. Your preparation belonged to you. Your performance belonged to you. Your professionalism belonged to you. The final decision did not. That distinction is everything. You can control the quality of your effort. You cannot guarantee the reward. You can control how seriously you prepare. You cannot control whether someone recognizes your preparation. You can control your behavior. You cannot control how another person interprets it. Control what is yours. Release what is not. That is the key. And understand this carefully. Releasing control does not mean giving up. It does not mean becoming passive. It does not mean saying nothing matters. It means putting your energy where it can actually produce results. You prepare harder, you communicate better, you improve your skills, you make another application, you learn from the rejection, you move forward. That is control. That is discipline. Stop fighting uncontrollable outcomes. There is a particular form of mental suffering that happens when reality does not match your expectations. You replay the event. You argue with it. You rewrite it. You imagine what should have happened. They shouldn't have said that. This shouldn't have happened. They should understand me. They should apologize. They should appreciate what I did. They should have chosen me. They should have treated me differently. Listen carefully. The word should can become a prison. Because reality does not have to obey your expectations. You can believe something should have happened. Reality can still say no. And every time you mentally fight that fact, you create another layer of suffering. The event happens once. Your resistance can make it happen inside your mind 100 times. This is why you need a replacement question. Not, why did this happen? Not, why did they do this to me? Not, how could they treat me this way? Ask, what can I do now? That question changes everything. You lose the opportunity. What can I do now? Someone criticizes you. What can I do now? A person rejects you. What can I do now? Your plans collapse. What can I do now? You make a mistake. What can I do now? The question pulls you out of emotional resistance and back into action. What can I control now? Ask it again. What can I control now? This is your return point. Return to your side of the line. Your side contains your actions. Your side contains your choices. Your side contains your character. Stay there. Do not cross the line trying to control what belongs to someone else. Their decision is theirs. Their opinion is theirs. Their reaction is theirs. Their behavior is theirs. Your response is yours. Own your response. Epictetus and the power of ownership. Epictetus understood this principle from a life that gave him very little external control. He was born into slavery. He lived without the freedom and status that most people today take for granted. Yet his philosophy centered heavily on what remained available to a human being, even under severe circumstances: judgment, choice, attitude, and conduct. That is important because it reveals something most people forget. Your circumstances can restrict your options. They do not automatically determine your character. Someone can make your day difficult. They cannot choose your response for you. Someone can insult you. They cannot force you to become insulting. Someone can reject you. They cannot decide whether you continue. Someone can disappoint you. They cannot decide whether you become bitter. That remains your territory, your side of the line, and you need to defend that territory. Think about traffic. You are late. Cars are moving slowly. Someone cuts in front of you. Your first reaction is anger. But what exactly are you controlling? The traffic? No. The other driver? No. The arrival time? Maybe partially, but not completely. What do you control? Your breathing, your attention, your driving, your decision not to make the situation more dangerous. So control what is yours. Release what is not. Consider a delayed message. You send someone an important text. They do not respond. Now your mind begins working. Why aren't they answering? Are they angry? Did I say something wrong? Why are they ignoring me? You have created an entire emotional story from a missing notification. Stop. Their response time is theirs. Your interpretation is yours. Your next action is yours. Their behavior is theirs. Your response is yours. Own your response. The same principle applies to criticism. Someone says you are not good enough. You cannot control their opinion, but you can examine your performance. If the criticism is useful, learn. If it is meaningless, release it. If it is cruel, establish a boundary. But do not automatically surrender your emotional state to the person delivering the criticism. You have a choice, always. Return to your side of the line. Here is the practical exercise. For the next 7 days, whenever you become emotionally disturbed, identify the event. Then draw an invisible line. Ask, what part of this belongs to me? Maybe it is your effort. Maybe it is your communication. Maybe it is your decision. Maybe it is your attitude. Maybe it is your next action. Then identify what does not belong to you. Their opinion, their decision, their reaction, the outcome, the timing, the past. Then release it. Not because it does not matter, because you cannot build your life by controlling what you cannot control. You build your life by mastering what you can. This is the difference between reaction and discipline. Reaction says, why is this happening to me? Discipline asks, what can I do now? Reaction says, they should change. Discipline says, what can I change? Reaction says, this should not have happened. Discipline says, it happened. Now what? That is the shift. That is the transformation. Control what is yours. Release what is not. What can I control now? Return to your side of the line. The Stoics knew this. Now you do too. And once you stop wasting your energy trying to control everyone and everything around you, something powerful happens. You become harder to provoke. You become harder to disappoint. You become harder to manipulate. Because your emotional state is no longer completely dependent on external events. You stop demanding that reality cooperate before you allow yourself to be calm. You stop needing everyone to behave correctly before you behave correctly. You stop waiting for the world to become easier before becoming stronger. Their behavior is theirs. Your response is yours. Own your response. That is the discipline. You have a choice, and every time reality gives you something you cannot control, you have another opportunity to practice that choice. So draw the line. Stand on your side. Control what is yours. Release what is not. And when life gives you something you never asked for, do not waste your strength arguing with the fact that it happened. Ask one question. What can I do now? Because once you master what belongs to you, you are ready for the next level of emotional control. You have learned not to chase what you cannot control. Now you must learn how to create space between what you feel and what you do. Chapter 3. Pause before you become your emotion. There is a moment most people never notice. It lasts only a few seconds. Someone says something. You hear it. Your body reacts. Your mind interprets it. And before you have consciously decided what to do, you are already reacting. You raise your voice. You send the message. You make the accusation. You walk away. You slam the door. You say something you cannot take back. Then later, when the emotion has disappeared, you think, why did I do that? Because you reacted before you chose. That is the problem. You are not always controlled by other people. You are often controlled by the speed of your own reaction. And this is where discipline becomes real. The disciplined person is not someone who never feels anger. The disciplined person is someone who can feel anger without immediately becoming an instrument of that anger. They create space. They pause. They observe. Then they choose. That small space between stimulus and response is where your freedom lives. And if you learn to control that space, you begin controlling yourself. Create the pause. You need a pause, not a complicated meditation ritual, not an hour of silence, a pause. A few seconds between what happens and what you do next. Someone provokes you? Stop speaking. Take one breath. Identify what you are feeling. Then decide what deserves to happen next. That is it. Simple. But simple does not mean easy, because your emotions want speed. Anger wants immediate expression. Fear wants immediate escape. Ego wants immediate defense. Insecurity wants immediate reassurance. The pause interrupts all of them. Imagine someone sends you a message that is clearly disrespectful. You read it. Your first instinct is to respond. You start typing. You want to explain yourself. You want to make them regret sending it. You want to prove that you are not someone who can be disrespected. Stop. Do not send it. Put the phone down. Breathe. Walk away for 10 minutes, then come back. Read your response again. You may discover something important. The message you wanted to send was not a solution. It was an emotional discharge. There is a difference. One solves, the other releases. One protects your interests, the other protects your ego. And when you learn to recognize that difference, you become dangerous in a different way. You become difficult to provoke. You become difficult to manipulate. You become difficult to pull into unnecessary conflict. Pause. Observe, then choose. Again. Pause. Observe, then choose. This is not weakness. This is not hesitation. This is command. You are telling your emotions, I see you. But you do not make the decision. That is the discipline. The emotion is real. The command is option. You need to understand something about emotions. Your emotions are real, but they are not automatically correct. Anger is real. Fear is real. Jealousy is real. Embarrassment is real. Resentment is real. But feeling something does not mean you must act on it. Your emotion is information. It is not an instruction. That distinction can change your life. Anger might be telling you that a boundary was crossed. Good. Examine the boundary. Fear might be telling you that something feels uncertain. Good. Examine the risk. Jealousy might be showing you something you deeply want. Good. Examine the desire. Shame might be revealing that you violated one of your own standards. Good. Examine your behavior. But do not immediately obey the emotion. Ask, what is this feeling showing me? Not, how can I express this feeling? That is the difference between emotional intelligence and emotional impulsiveness. An impulsive person feels anger and looks for a target. A disciplined person feels anger and looks for information. An impulsive person feels fear and immediately escapes. A disciplined person feels fear and asks whether the danger is real. An impulsive person feels jealousy and attacks the person who triggered it. A disciplined person studies the jealousy and asks what it reveals about their own desires. The emotion becomes a signal, not a master. An emotion is not an order. Say it again. An emotion is not an order. You can feel something without obeying it. That is one of the most important skills you can develop. Because the goal is not emotional numbness. The goal is emotional authority. You remain capable of feeling deeply, but you stop allowing every feeling to take the steering wheel. Anger is information, not an instruction. Anger deserves special attention because anger feels powerful. It creates energy. It creates certainty. It makes you believe you are right. And that is exactly why it is dangerous. When you are angry, your mind can become extremely convincing. You suddenly have 10 reasons why your reaction is justified. You remember every previous offense. You bring up things from 6 months ago. You construct an entire case against another person. And because you feel strongly, you assume you must act strongly. Stop. Ask a better question. What is this anger showing me? Maybe someone crossed a boundary. Maybe you feel disrespected. Maybe your expectation was violated. Maybe your ego was challenged. Maybe you are exhausted. Maybe you are afraid. Maybe the situation is not even about the person in front of you. Maybe you are carrying frustration from somewhere else. Anger can reveal the wound, but anger does not automatically know how to heal it. That is your responsibility. So when anger rises, do not immediately speak. Lower your voice. Slow your breathing. Relax your body. Create physical distance if necessary. Do not send the message. Do not make the decision. Do not make the threat. Do not make the permanent choice during the temporary storm. Wait. Then examine. If a boundary needs to be established, establish it calmly. If an apology is necessary, give one. If someone needs to be confronted, confront them without losing control of yourself. If nothing needs to happen, let the emotion pass. This is strength, not suppression. Control. Feel it. Study it. Do not obey it. Marcus Aurelius and the Discipline of Delayed Reaction. Marcus Aurelius lived in an environment where emotional control was not theoretical. He was an emperor. His position placed him in the center of political conflict, military pressure, personal loss, disease, betrayal, and enormous responsibility. He had reasons to become angry. He had reasons to become suspicious. He had reasons to become overwhelmed. But Stoicism did not ask him to pretend those emotions did not exist. The discipline was different. He repeatedly brought himself back to the question of how he should conduct himself regardless of what was happening around him. That is the lesson. Not that Marcus felt nothing. He was human. He felt. He suffered. He faced loss. He experienced pressure. But feeling something did not automatically determine what he did next. That distinction matters. You can feel anger without becoming anger. You can feel fear without obeying fear. You can feel disappointment without becoming defeated. You can feel rejection without rejecting yourself. You can feel pressure without becoming reckless. You are not the first emotion that appears. You are the person who decides what happens after it appears. That is the pause. That is your territory. That is your control. Build your emotional pause protocol. Now make this practical. The next time you are triggered, use 4 steps. Step 1, stop. Do not speak, do not type, do not act. Interrupt the automatic sequence. Step 2, breathe. 1 slow breath, then another if necessary. Your body needs a signal that immediate action is not required. Step 3, name the emotion. Say internally, I am angry. I am afraid. I feel rejected. I feel embarrassed. Naming the emotion creates distance from it. You are no longer simply experiencing the emotion, you are observing it. Step 4, choose. Ask, what response serves me? Not what response feels satisfying. Those are different questions. The satisfying response may be revenge. The useful response may be silence. The satisfying response may be proving someone wrong. The useful response may be walking away. The satisfying response may be sending the message. The useful response may be waiting until tomorrow. Choose what serves your character. Pause. Observe. Then choose. Practice this enough times and something changes. The pause becomes automatic. You stop reacting as quickly. You begin seeing your own emotional patterns. You discover what triggers you. You discover where your ego is fragile. You discover which situations make you abandon your standards. And once you see those patterns, you can train them. That is how emotional mastery develops. Not through one dramatic breakthrough, through thousands of small pauses. One pause, then another, until the person who once reacted instantly becomes the person who remains calm under pressure. You do not have to become your emotion, remember this. Your emotion can enter the room without becoming the owner of the room. Anger can be present. You can still think. Fear can be present. You can still act. Disappointment can be present. You can still continue. You do not need to eliminate emotion. You need to stop surrendering authority to emotion. That is the difference. It is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming deliberate. It is not about feeling nothing. It is about obeying your principles even when you feel everything. It is not about suppressing anger. It is about controlling what anger produces. You have a choice, always. The Stoics knew this. Now you do too. So the next time someone pushes your buttons, do not give them the satisfaction of controlling your behavior. Pause. Breathe. Observe. Then choose. Because the strongest person in the room is not always the loudest. Sometimes it is the person who feels the anger rising and simply refuses to hand the anger the microphone. You can feel anger without becoming anger. You can feel fear without obeying fear. You can feel pressure without losing yourself. And when you master that pause, you reclaim something most people give away every single day. Control. You have learned to stop reacting immediately. You have learned to create space between emotion and action. Now you must learn what happens when other people try to pull you back into reaction through their words, their behavior, and their expectations. Because the next level of discipline is learning to stop trying to control people who were never yours to control. Chapter 4. Stop trying to control other people. You are exhausted for a reason. You keep trying to control people. You want them to understand you. You want them to respect you. You want them to appreciate you. You want them to respond the way you expect. You want them to apologize. You want them to change. You want them to see your intentions. You want them to recognize your value. And every time they refuse to behave the way you want, you suffer. Think about how much energy that requires. You cannot control their thoughts, but you keep thinking about what they think. You cannot control their opinions, but you keep trying to change them. You cannot control their behavior, but you keep replaying it. You cannot control their approval, but you keep searching for it. This is emotional exhaustion, not because people are always difficult, because you are demanding control over something that was never yours. The Stoics understood this. They knew that your responsibility is your conduct, not everyone else's. Your character, not their opinion. Your response, not their reaction. Control your conduct, release their reaction. That is the discipline. You cannot force respect. You cannot force someone to respect you. Read that again. You cannot force respect. You can behave with integrity. You can communicate clearly. You can maintain boundaries. You can become competent. You can become reliable. You can become disciplined. But you cannot reach inside another person's mind and command them to value you. And yet, people waste years trying. They post something online and check who liked it. They send a message and repeatedly check whether the other person has responded. They accomplish something and immediately look around to see who noticed. They make a decision and become anxious when someone disapproves. They walk into a room and start measuring themselves against everyone else. Their emotional state becomes a scoreboard. Did they approve of me? Did they notice me? Do they respect me? Why didn't they respond? Why did they choose someone else? Stop. You are handing your emotional stability to people who may not even be thinking about you. Someone can misunderstand you. Let them. Someone can dislike you. Let them. Someone can criticize you. Listen if there is something useful. Release it if there is not. Someone can underestimate you. Keep working. Someone can refuse to recognize your effort. Keep improving. You do not need their permission. You do not need their approval. You need to know whether you are acting according to your own standards. That is a completely different way to live. Instead of asking, "Do they like me?" ask, "Am I behaving with integrity?" Instead of, "Do they respect me?" ask, "Am I respecting myself through my actions?" Instead of, "Why don't they understand me?" ask, "Have I communicated clearly?" Once you have done your part, stop. Their interpretation belongs to them. Your conduct belongs to you. You have a choice. Stop explaining yourself. One of the clearest signs that you are dependent on other people's approval is excessive explanation. You make a decision. Someone questions it. You explain. They question again. You explain more. They still disagree. You explain even more. Now you are not communicating. You are trying to obtain permission. There is a difference. Healthy communication gives information. Insecurity demands validation. You need to learn the difference. Sometimes you need to explain yourself. If you made a mistake, clarify it. If someone genuinely misunderstood you, communicate. If a relationship requires an important conversation, have it. But once you have communicated clearly, stop chasing agreement. Say what is necessary, then let it go. That is the discipline. Imagine you decide to change your lifestyle. You stop drinking, you start exercising, you wake up earlier, you spend less time online, you become more disciplined. Someone says, "Why are you doing all this? You are taking life too seriously." You explain. They disagree. You explain again. They laugh. You become frustrated. Now their opinion is controlling your behavior. Why? You did not need to convince them. You needed to live your decision. Say what is necessary, then let it go. You do not have to win every conversation. You do not have to correct every misunderstanding. You do not have to make everyone see your perspective. You are allowed to walk away from an argument without feeling defeated. You are allowed to let someone have the wrong opinion of you. You are allowed to remain silent when an explanation would only create another argument. This is emotional independence, and emotional independence is power. The need to be understood. There is another trap, the need to be understood. You want people to know that you meant well. You want them to know that you were trying. You want them to know the full story. You want them to know what you sacrificed. You want them to know why you made that decision. But sometimes people will never understand, and you have to be strong enough to survive that. Not everyone has access to your intentions. Not everyone has the maturity to interpret your actions fairly. Not everyone will hear your explanation. Not everyone will care. That does not mean you should become bitter. It means you should become independent. Your life cannot become a courtroom where you constantly defend your character. You know what you did. You know why you did it. If correction is necessary, correct yourself. If an apology is necessary, apologize. If a lesson is necessary, learn it. Then continue. Your character is enough. You do not need to constantly advertise it. You do not need to constantly defend it. You do not need to constantly prove it. Let your behavior accumulate evidence. Let your consistency speak. Let time reveal who you are. That is stronger than explanation. Seneca and emotional independence. Seneca understood the instability of external things. He experienced wealth, political influence, public attention, danger, exile, power, loss. He lived close to the center of Roman political life and understood how quickly circumstances could change. That is important because it demonstrates a fundamental Stoic lesson. External success is unstable. External approval is unstable. External status is unstable. If your peace depends on those things remaining favorable, your peace is fragile. If you feel confident only when people praise you, praise controls you. If you feel valuable only when people choose you, rejection controls you. If you feel powerful only when people obey you, disobedience controls you. If you feel calm only when everything goes according to plan, uncertainty controls you. You have built your emotional life on conditions, and conditions change. That is why the Stoic builds inward. Control your conduct. Release their reaction. Your character is enough. That does not mean you should stop caring about relationships. It means you stop making relationships the foundation of your identity. Love people, respect people, serve people, communicate with people, but do not surrender your inner stability to their behavior. Someone can leave. You continue. Someone can disagree. You remain grounded. Someone can criticize. You examine it. Someone can reject you. You recover. Someone can misunderstand you. You remain honest. This is strength. Not because you do not care, because you know what belongs to you. Stop checking the scoreboard. Here is your practical assignment. For the next 7 days, stop checking the emotional scoreboard. Do not constantly monitor who liked your post. Do not repeatedly check whether someone responded. Do not measure your worth by compliments. Do not obsess over who noticed your work. Do not replay someone's criticism for hours. Instead, ask yourself at the end of each day, did I act according to my standards? Did I keep my word? Did I control my reactions? Did I do the work? Did I communicate honestly? Did I connect with others? Did I treat people with respect? Did I maintain my boundaries? Did I correct myself when I was wrong? Those are your measurements, not applause, not attention, not approval, not popularity. Your conduct, your discipline, your character. That is what you control. And here is the uncomfortable truth. The more you need people to behave correctly before you can remain calm, the less control you actually have. Because you have made your peace conditional. You are saying, I will be calm if they respect me. I will be confident if they approve of me. I will be happy if they choose me. I will be okay if they understand me. No, that is dependence. Instead, I will control my conduct regardless. I will maintain my standards regardless. I will choose my response regardless. I will remain myself regardless. That is freedom. You have a choice. You always have a choice about what you do next. You cannot control their behavior, but you can control your behavior. You cannot control their reaction, but you can control your response. You cannot control their opinion, but you can control your character. Control your conduct. Release their reaction. Your character is enough. The Stoics knew this. Now you do too. Stop chasing approval. Stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Stop trying to force respect. Stop measuring your worth through other people's reactions. Say what is necessary, then let it go. And remember, the moment you stop needing everyone to understand you is the moment you become much harder to manipulate, because manipulation requires access to your emotional needs. If someone can control you through praise, they can control you through withdrawal. If they can control you through approval, they can control you through rejection. If they can control you through attention, they can control you through silence. But when you stop depending on those things, their power decreases. You become internally governed. You become steady. You become free. And now there is another discipline you must learn. Because sometimes the strongest response is not an explanation, not an argument, not a defense, not another message. Sometimes the strongest response is silence. Chapter 5. Practice the discipline of silence. Most people are afraid of silence. They feel uncomfortable when nobody is speaking. They feel uncomfortable when someone misunderstands them. They feel uncomfortable when an argument ends without them having the final word. So they fill the space. They explain. They defend. They justify. They argue. They send another message. They make another post. They say what they feel. They say what they think. They say what they should have said 10 minutes ago. And then they wonder why they constantly feel exposed. Because they keep giving away information. They keep giving away emotion. They keep giving away attention. They keep giving away control. Silence changes that. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not surrender. Silence is not fear. Used correctly, silence is self-command. It is the ability to feel the urge to speak and still decide whether speaking serves you. That distinction matters, because disciplined people do not speak simply because they have something to say. They speak because something needs to be said. And when nothing needs to be said, they are comfortable with silence. You don't have to respond. Silence is a choice. No reaction is still a decision. That is the discipline. Stop reacting with words. Modern life has trained you to respond instantly. Someone sends a message, you answer. Someone comments, you reply. Someone disagrees, you defend yourself. Someone insults you, you attack back. Someone posts an opinion you dislike, you feel compelled to correct it. Everything becomes immediate, everything becomes public, everything becomes emotional, and the faster you respond, the less time you have to think. That is exactly why silence is powerful. Silence creates distance. It gives you time. It prevents emotion from becoming language before your judgment has had a chance to speak. Imagine someone insults you publicly. They want a reaction. They expect you to defend yourself. They want you angry. They want you emotional. They may even be watching your face, waiting for you to lose control. What happens if you remain calm? You have not surrendered. You have refused to give them control. You have decided that their behavior will not determine yours. You don't have to respond. Say it again. You don't have to respond. Someone can throw a verbal weapon at you. You do not have to catch it. Someone can invite you into an argument. You do not have to enter. Someone can demand an explanation. You can decide whether an explanation is necessary. Someone can provoke your ego. You can refuse the invitation. That is power. And understand this clearly. Silence does not mean avoiding every difficult conversation. Sometimes you must speak. Sometimes you must defend someone. Sometimes you must establish a boundary. Sometimes you must correct a lie. Sometimes you must say no. The Stoic is not passive. The disciplined person does not avoid action. The disciplined person avoids unnecessary reaction. There is a difference. If speaking protects something important, speak. If speaking solves a problem, speak. If speaking establishes a necessary boundary, speak. But if speaking is simply an attempt to discharge anger, stop. If speaking is simply an attempt to prove your superiority, stop. If speaking is simply an attempt to force someone to understand you, stop. Ask one question. Does this need to be said? If the answer is no, silence. Silence is a choice. Silence gives you information. Here is something most people miss. Silence does not only protect you. Silence teaches you. When you stop talking, you start noticing. You notice patterns. You notice inconsistencies. You notice nervous behavior. You notice contradictions. You notice what people emphasize. You notice what they avoid. You notice how they treat people when there is nothing to gain. You notice how quickly someone becomes angry when they do not get agreement. You notice how someone changes their story when challenged. You notice who respects boundaries. You notice who constantly demands attention. And you cannot notice these things if you are constantly trying to be heard. You are too busy preparing your next sentence. That is why silence becomes an observational tool. Watch more, speak less, see what others reveal. Think about a meeting. Someone makes a strong claim. Your first instinct is to respond. But instead, you listen. Someone else speaks, then another person adds information. Suddenly, you realize the situation is more complicated than you thought. Your first reaction would have been based on incomplete information. Your silence gave you more information. That is a major advantage. The person who speaks immediately gives away their position immediately. The person who observes first has more information before making a decision. This is not manipulation. It is awareness. You are not staying silent to deceive people. You are staying silent because you refuse to let impulse make decisions before you understand the situation. That is discipline. Now apply it to conflict. Someone accuses you of something. Do not interrupt immediately. Listen. What exactly are they saying? What part is true? What part is emotional? What part is projection? What part requires a response? You may discover that half the argument disappears when you stop feeding it. Sometimes people reveal everything they need to reveal when you simply stop interrupting them. Let them talk. Watch. Listen. Observe. See what others reveal, and then decide. Silence protects you from your own impulse. There is another reason silence matters. Sometimes the person you need protection from is not someone else. It is you. Your mouth can move faster than your judgment. One sentence can destroy trust. One message can end a relationship. One angry response can damage your reputation. One emotional post can remain online long after the emotion disappears. You cannot always take words back. That is why delay matters. If you are angry, wait. If you are emotional, wait. If you are tempted to send a long explanation, wait. If you are desperate to prove yourself, wait. Give your future self a chance to make the decision. This is especially important with digital communication. Your phone gives you instant access to everyone. That does not mean everyone deserves instant access to you. You do not need to answer every message immediately. You do not need to participate in every argument. You do not need to react to every comment. You do not need to make your emotional state public. Create a delay. 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, sometimes a night. Ask yourself, will this matter tomorrow? Will I be proud of these words tomorrow? Am I communicating or reacting? Am I solving something or releasing something? Those questions create distance. Distance creates judgment. Judgment creates control. No reaction is still a decision. The Stoic practice of inner silence. But there is a deeper form of silence. External silence is easy compared to internal silence. You can stop speaking while your mind continues screaming. You replay conversations. You imagine arguments. You create speeches you will never deliver. You rehearse insults. You imagine how you will prove someone wrong. You replay the moment you were disrespected. You create entire conversations with people who are not even present. Your mouth is silent. Your mind is not. This is where Stoic practice becomes deeper. The Stoics emphasized examining your judgments rather than automatically accepting every thought as truth. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly practiced returning his attention to the present task and his own conduct rather than becoming lost in endless mental noise. That principle matters today. Because you can be sitting alone in a quiet room and still be emotionally controlled by someone who is miles away. You are physically alone, but mentally you are still arguing. That is not freedom. You need inner silence. Not the absence of thought, the absence of unnecessary mental obedience. A thought appears. You notice it. You do not have to follow it. A memory appears. You notice it. You do not have to replay it. An insult appears in your mind. You notice it. You do not have to build a story around it. You feel the desire to prove yourself. You notice it. You do not have to act. Quiet the mind. Return to yourself. You do not need to answer everything. Stop having arguments that do not exist. Think about how much energy you waste fighting imaginary battles. You imagine someone criticizing you. You prepare your response. You imagine them disagreeing. You prepare another response. You imagine them insulting you. You destroy them in your imagination. Then you feel emotionally exhausted. Nothing happened, but your nervous system experienced the argument anyway. You have allowed imaginary people to occupy real space in your mind. Stop. When you catch yourself doing this, say, "Not now." Return to what is real. What is physically in front of you? What task needs to be completed? What person is actually present? What decision needs to be made? Return. That is the discipline. You do not need to solve imaginary problems. You do not need to win imaginary arguments. You do not need to defend yourself against conversations that never happened. Quiet the mind. Return to reality. Return to yourself. Silence is not about disappearing. Do not misunderstand this chapter. You are not being told to become antisocial. You are not being told to suppress your personality. You are not being told to avoid difficult conversations. You are being taught selectivity. Speak when speech serves your values. Remain silent when speech would only serve your impulse. Communicate when communication solves something. Wait when emotion is trying to hijack the conversation. The goal is not to become invisible. The goal is to become intentional. Your words should become heavier because you use fewer unnecessary ones. Your presence should become calmer because you are no longer constantly reacting. Your decisions should become stronger because you are observing before acting. That is what disciplined silence creates. You stop needing to prove that you are intelligent. You stop needing to prove that you are right. You stop needing to prove that you are strong. You simply become disciplined. And disciplined people do not need to announce their discipline. Their behavior demonstrates it. The 7-Day Silence Challenge. For the next 7 days, practice deliberate silence. When provoked, wait. When criticized, listen before defending yourself. When you want to send an angry message, delay it. When you feel the need to explain yourself repeatedly, stop after the necessary explanation. When someone tries to pull you into an unnecessary argument, do not participate. When your mind begins replaying an imaginary conversation, return to reality. And every night, ask yourself, where did silence protect me today? Where did I speak because I needed to? And where did I speak because my ego demanded it? You will begin to see the difference. You will discover how often you speak to relieve discomfort rather than solve problems. You will discover how often you explain because you want approval. You will discover how often you react because silence makes you uncomfortable. Then you can change. Watch more. Speak less. See what others reveal. Because silence creates space. Space creates awareness. Awareness creates choice. And choice creates discipline. The Stoics knew this. Now you do too. You don't have to respond. Silence is a choice. No reaction is still a decision. But remember one final thing. Silence is not the goal. Self-command is the goal. You are not trying to become silent so people will fear you. You are becoming deliberate so people cannot easily control you. You are not refusing to speak because you are weak. You are refusing to speak because you know your words have consequences. You are not avoiding emotion. You are creating enough space to understand it. Quiet the mind. Return to yourself. You do not need to answer everything. The person who can remain silent when provoked is already stronger than the person who needs to react. The person who can listen without immediately defending is already learning control. And the person who can sit with an uncomfortable emotion without turning it into words, actions, or conflict is building something even more valuable. Inner authority. You have learned to protect your attention. You have learned to control what belongs to you. You have learned to pause before emotion becomes action. Now you have learned to use silence as a form of self-command. But there is another reason people lose control. They expect other people to behave differently from who they actually are. They expect fairness. They expect loyalty. They expect understanding. They expect everyone to act according to their standards. And when reality disappoints those expectations, they react all over again. The next step is learning to prepare for human nature instead of being shocked by it. Chapter 6. Expect less from people and control more of yourself. One of the biggest reasons people lose their peace is simple. They expect reality to behave the way they want. They expect people to be reasonable. They expect people to be loyal. They expect people to be honest. They expect people to appreciate them. They expect plans to work. They expect effort to produce results. They expect life to be fair. And when reality does not cooperate, they become angry. They say, "I can't believe they did that. I didn't expect this. Why would they treat me like that? This was supposed to work. This shouldn't be happening." And suddenly, a difficult situation becomes an emotional crisis. But ask yourself something. Why were you surprised? Human beings are inconsistent. Plans fail, people change, technology breaks, opportunities disappear, messages go unanswered. Promises are forgotten. People act from fear. People act from insecurity. People act selfishly. People misunderstand. People disappoint. This is not a malfunction in reality. This is reality. And the Stoic does something different. The Stoic does not build peace on the assumption that everything will go well. The Stoic prepares the mind for the possibility that it will not. Expect reality. Do not be surprised by human nature. That is the discipline. Stop being shocked by human nature. You need to stop expecting perfection from imperfect people. This does not mean becoming cynical. It means becoming realistic. Someone may promise something and fail to deliver. Someone may tell you they understand and later behave differently. Someone may praise you today and criticize you tomorrow. Someone may be generous in one situation and selfish in another. Someone may genuinely care about you and still hurt you. People are complicated, including you. You have probably disappointed people without intending to. You have probably reacted emotionally. You have probably misunderstood someone. You have probably made promises you struggled to keep. You are human. So is everyone else. The problem begins when you demand that other people behave perfectly while giving yourself the excuse of being human. That creates unrealistic expectations, and unrealistic expectations create unnecessary anger. Imagine you are working on a project with someone. You assume they will be as organized as you are. You assume they will remember everything. You assume they will care about every detail. You assume they will communicate exactly when you want. Then they make a mistake. You become furious. But perhaps the mistake was predictable. Perhaps you never clarified the responsibility. Perhaps you never checked the work. Perhaps you assumed instead of communicating. Now the problem is not simply their mistake. It is your expectation. A disciplined person does not say, "People should never make mistakes." They say, "People make mistakes. How do I build a system that accounts for that?" That is a completely different mindset. Expect reality, not perfection. Reality. Expect delays, expect disagreement, expect misunderstanding, expect setbacks, expect imperfect people. And when difficulty appears, you do not collapse. You say, "I knew this was possible. Now what do I do?" That is strength. Expectation is not the same as trust. You can trust someone without making your emotional stability dependent on their perfection. You can love someone without assuming they will never disappoint you. You can work with someone without assuming they will never make mistakes. You can build a business without assuming every plan will succeed. You can pursue a goal without assuming the path will be smooth. This is mature thinking. You prepare for reality while still hoping for the best. That distinction is important. Optimism says, "I hope this works." Preparation says, "And if it doesn't, I will adapt." That is Stoic optimism. Not blind positivity, prepared confidence. You are not expecting disaster. You are refusing to be destroyed by it. Negative visualization. This brings us to one of the most useful Stoic practices. Negative visualization. The name sounds pessimistic. It is not. It is preparation. The practice is simple. Before something important happens, briefly imagine what could go wrong. Not to obsess, not to create anxiety, not to predict catastrophe, to prepare. Imagine you have an important presentation tomorrow. Most people imagine success. They imagine everything going perfectly. The technology works, the audience listens, everyone agrees, the presentation finishes smoothly. That feels good, but it creates a weakness. You become emotionally dependent on the ideal scenario. Instead, ask, what if the laptop fails? What if the presentation does not open? What if someone challenges my argument? What if I forget something? What if the audience is difficult? What if I receive criticism? Now prepare. Bring a backup. Know the material instead of relying completely on slides. Prepare answers. Practice recovering from mistakes. Now you are stronger. You are not expecting failure. You are preparing for uncertainty. Expect difficulty. Prepare without fear. If it happens, I am ready. This can be applied everywhere. Before a difficult conversation, what if they become defensive? Prepare. Before a job interview, what if they ask something unexpected? Prepare. Before a major trip, what if the schedule changes? Prepare. Before starting a business, what if the first plan fails? Prepare. Before pursuing a difficult goal, what if motivation disappears? Prepare your systems. This is how you turn uncertainty into training. Negative visualization builds gratitude too. There is another benefit. Negative visualization does not only prepare you for loss, it makes you appreciate what you currently have. Think about your health, your freedom, your relationships, your ability to work, your ability to walk, your ability to speak, your ability to learn, your ordinary day. Most people do not notice these things because they assume they will always exist. The Stoics often practiced mentally recognizing the temporary nature of external things. The purpose was not to become depressed, it was to become awake. When you understand that circumstances can change, you stop treating ordinary blessings as permanent guarantees. And that changes how you live. You appreciate the person sitting beside you. You appreciate the quiet morning. You appreciate your ability to work. You appreciate your health. You appreciate your time. You stop saying, "I'll appreciate it later," because later is not guaranteed. This is another reason emotional control matters. When you understand that everything is temporary, small inconveniences become smaller. You still solve problems, you still act, but you stop turning every inconvenience into a personal tragedy. Build emotional shock resistance. Now we reach the deeper lesson. You cannot become emotionally strong by reading about emotional strength. You have to train it. You need controlled exposure to inconvenience. Take cold showers if appropriate. Exercise when you do not feel like it. Wake up when you said you would. Work without immediate entertainment. Leave your phone alone. Have difficult conversations. Do the boring task. Finish what you started. Practice waiting. Practice being uncomfortable without immediately escaping. Why? Because every small act teaches your nervous system something. I can handle discomfort. You are training the belief that discomfort does not automatically require escape. That matters when bigger problems arrive. If you constantly escape minor discomfort, major discomfort will feel unbearable. But if you practice staying steady during small inconveniences, you develop emotional shock resistance. Someone criticizes you. You breathe. A plan fails. You adapt. Someone disappoints you. You recover. You make a mistake. You correct it. The world becomes unpredictable. You remain functional. That is the goal. Not a life without problems. A person who remains capable inside problems. I can handle this. Say it again. I can handle this. Not, this should not be happening. Not, why me? Not, everything is ruined. Just, I can handle this. Maybe it is difficult. Good. Difficult does not mean impossible. This is uncomfortable, not impossible. That distinction will save you. Stop demanding that life feel easy. Many people have an unconscious rule: if I am doing the right thing, life should become easier. No. Doing the right thing does not guarantee an easy life. Discipline does not remove difficulty. It makes you more capable of handling difficulty. You can work hard and still fail. You can be kind and still be misunderstood. You can prepare and still lose. You can make good decisions and still experience bad outcomes. That does not mean the discipline failed. That is where the discipline is tested. Anyone can remain calm when everything is going their way. The test comes when it is not. When the email does not arrive. When the person says no. When the plan collapses. When the opportunity disappears. When someone criticizes you. When your hard work produces nothing immediately. That is when you practice. Stay steady. Not because you know everything will work out, because you know you can respond regardless. That is a stronger form of confidence. Train before the storm. Do not wait for the crisis to discover whether you are disciplined. Train now. Every morning ask, what could make today difficult? Maybe a difficult person. Maybe a deadline. Maybe fatigue. Maybe an unexpected problem. Maybe an emotional trigger. Then decide, how will I respond? This is mental rehearsal. You are building a response before the situation arrives. Then, when it happens, your mind recognizes it. This is the difficulty I anticipated. You do not need to invent a new emotional strategy while under pressure. You already have one. Pause, breathe, observe, control what is yours, release what is not. Choose the response. That is the system, and systems create consistency. The 7-day shock resistance practice. For the next 7 days, deliberately practice one small inconvenience without complaining. Wait without checking your phone. Exercise without negotiating. Work without distraction. Let someone disagree without correcting them. Accept a delay without becoming angry. Do a task you do not want to do. Then observe yourself. What happens inside you? What story does your mind create? What emotion appears? What do you want to escape? Study it. You are not trying to become uncomfortable for no reason. You are learning how your mind responds to discomfort. And once you understand your response, you can train it. I can handle this. This is uncomfortable, not impossible. Stay steady. Those words need to become familiar, because someday, something genuinely difficult will happen. And when it does, you will not have the luxury of building discipline from scratch. You will rely on what you practiced before the storm. That is why you train now. Expect less, control more. Stop expecting everyone to behave perfectly. Stop expecting every plan to work. Stop expecting every effort to be rewarded immediately. Stop expecting life to remove every obstacle. Expect reality. Prepare for difficulty. And then move forward anyway. This is not pessimism. This is resilience. You are not assuming everything will go wrong. You are making sure that if something does go wrong, you will not become useless. That is the difference. The weak mind says, this wasn't supposed to happen. The disciplined mind says, it happened. What now? The weak mind says, I can't believe they did that. The disciplined mind says, people are imperfect. What is my response? The weak mind says, this is too uncomfortable. The disciplined mind says, this is uncomfortable, not impossible. Expect reality. Do not be surprised by human nature. Expect difficulty. Prepare without fear. If it happens, I am ready. The Stoics knew that peace does not come from controlling the world. It comes from preparing yourself for the world as it actually is. You cannot control whether people disappoint you. You can control whether disappointment destroys your discipline. You cannot control whether plans fail. You can control whether failure becomes information. You cannot control whether difficulty arrives. You can control whether you meet difficulty with panic or preparation. You have a choice, and every difficult moment is an opportunity to practice that choice. You have learned to stop reacting to everything. You have learned to separate what is yours from what is not. You have learned to pause before emotion becomes action. You have learned to use silence. Now you must go one step further. You must stop fighting reality itself. Because the strongest person is not the one who avoids obstacles. It is the person who learns how to use them. The person who stops asking, "Why did this happen?" and starts asking, "What can this make me?" That is the discipline of the next chapter. Chapter 7. Practice amor fati. Stop resisting reality. There is a moment that can destroy your peace. It happens when reality does not match your expectations. You planned something. It failed. You trusted someone. They disappointed you. You worked hard. You were rejected. You prepared carefully. Something still went wrong. And immediately the mind says, "This shouldn't have happened." That sentence feels harmless. It is not. Because once you start arguing with reality, you create a second problem. The first problem is what happened. The second problem is your refusal to accept that it happened. You lose the opportunity. Then you spend weeks thinking about why you should not have lost it. Someone leaves. You replay every conversation. A business fails. You replay every decision. Someone betrays you. You replay the moment again and again. The event happens once. Your mind can make it happen 1,000 times. This is where Stoic philosophy gives you another weapon. Amor fati. A willingness to meet reality as it is and use it instead of constantly fighting its existence. Not because everything that happens is good. Not because pain should be romanticized, not because injustice should be tolerated, but because reality has already happened. And once something has happened, your power is no longer in changing the fact. Your power is in deciding what comes next. It happened. Now use it. What can this become? That is the discipline. Stop saying, "This shouldn't have happened." You need to recognize how often you mentally argue with facts. This shouldn't have happened. They shouldn't have treated me like that. I shouldn't have failed. I shouldn't have lost that opportunity. I shouldn't be in this position. Maybe you're right. Maybe it shouldn't have happened, but it did. And reality does not reverse itself because you disagree with it. This is where people waste enormous amounts of emotional energy. They are not solving the problem. They are protesting the existence of the problem. Imagine you were expecting a promotion. You worked hard, you stayed late, you delivered results. Then someone else gets promoted. You feel disappointed. That is normal. But then your mind starts, "I deserved it. They overlooked me. This is unfair. They should have recognized my work." Days become weeks. You replay the meeting. You analyze every conversation. You imagine what you should have said. You mentally rewrite the decision. But the promotion is still gone. Your emotional resistance has changed nothing. What could you do instead? Study why the decision happened. Ask for feedback. Improve the missing skill. Search for another opportunity. Build leverage. Apply somewhere else. Use the experience. It happened. Now use it. This is not pretending that rejection feels good. It is refusing to let rejection become wasted suffering. That is different. You are allowed to be disappointed. You are allowed to be angry. You are allowed to grieve. But eventually, you must ask, what can this become? That question turns pain into movement. Amor fati is not blind acceptance. Do not misunderstand this concept. Amor fati does not mean loving every painful event in some naive way. You do not need to enjoy betrayal. You do not need to celebrate failure. You do not need to call loss a blessing while you are still processing it. And you certainly do not need to tolerate abuse or injustice simply because you believe in acceptance. Acceptance means recognizing reality accurately. If something is wrong, acknowledge that it is wrong, then act. If someone violates a boundary, establish the boundary. If a situation is unhealthy, leave it. If a mistake was made, correct it. If you failed, learn. Acceptance is not passivity. Acceptance is the end of arguing with the fact that the event exists. Once you accept reality, you can work with it. Before acceptance, your energy is divided. Part of you is dealing with the problem, the other part is screaming, "This shouldn't be happening." You cannot fight reality and effectively respond to reality at the same time. That is why acceptance creates power. It happened. Now what? It happened. Now use it. It happened. Now move. That is the discipline. Turn obstacles into training. Imagine every obstacle as a training device. A difficult colleague can train patience. A demanding client can train communication. A rejection can train resilience. A failure can expose weaknesses. A delay can train patience. A difficult conversation can train courage. A loss can teach you what you actually value. A mistake can reveal a system that needs to change. This is how the disciplined person thinks. They do not ask only, how do I get rid of this problem? They ask, what ability can this problem force me to develop? That question changes your relationship with difficulty. Suppose you have a coworker who constantly irritates you. Your first instinct is, I need this person to change. But maybe the situation is training your patience. Maybe it is teaching you how to communicate boundaries. Maybe it is teaching you not to personalize every behavior. Maybe it is teaching you how to remain professional around people you do not like. The obstacle becomes training. Suppose you are rejected. You wanted the job, you wanted the relationship, you wanted the opportunity. You did not get it. You can spend months feeling defeated, or you can ask, what did this reveal? Where was I weak? What can I improve? What did I learn? Where else can I go? The rejection becomes information. The pain becomes instruction. The obstacle becomes material. Use the obstacle. Turn resistance into training. Make reality work for you. The obstacle reveals you. There is something else you need to understand. Success can hide your weaknesses. Failure exposes them. When everything works, you may believe you are disciplined. Then something goes wrong. Suddenly you discover how dependent you were on convenience. You discover how quickly you become emotional. You discover how badly you need approval. You discover how fragile your patience is. You discover how much your confidence depends on winning. That discovery is valuable. Painful, but valuable. Because now you know what needs to be trained. This is why disciplined people do not automatically waste difficult experiences. They study them. After a failure, ask, what did this reveal about me? Did I lack preparation? Did I depend too much on one outcome? Did I ignore warning signs? Did I allow emotion to control my decision? Did I expect someone else to save me? Did I stop when the first obstacle appeared? Now you have information. And information can become improvement. That is how you turn failure into fuel, not through motivational slogans, through honest examination. Marcus Aurelius and adversity. Marcus Aurelius is a powerful example of this mindset because his life was filled with circumstances he could not simply remove. His reign involved military conflict, political instability, disease, personal losses, family tragedies, heavy responsibility, and constant pressure. He did not have the luxury of waiting for life to become perfectly convenient before doing his duty. That is the lesson. He had to operate inside reality, not the reality he wished for, the reality he actually had. This is what Stoicism demands from you. You may wish your family were different. You may wish your career were different. You may wish your health, finances, relationships, or opportunities were different. Some things can be changed. Change them. But some things have already happened. Some things cannot be reversed. Some people will not change. Some opportunities are gone. Some losses cannot be repaired. And when you reach that boundary, resistance becomes useless. Your job is not to demand another reality. Your job is to become capable inside this one. This is the material. This is the training. Keep moving. Stop asking, why me? One of the most destructive questions you can ask during difficulty is, why me? Why did this happen to me? Why did they choose me? Why did I lose? Why did I get rejected? Why did this have to happen now? There may be no satisfying answer, and even if there is, knowing the reason does not necessarily solve the problem. Replace it. Ask, what now? What can I learn? What can I control? What needs to change? What can I build? What can I become? That is a much stronger question. Because why me keeps you looking backward. What now brings you forward. It happened. Now use it. Make reality work for you. This is the deeper meaning of amor fati. Stop demanding that reality give you ideal conditions. Start asking how you can use the conditions you have. If you have less money than you want, develop resourcefulness. If you have less experience, develop skill. If you have been rejected, develop resilience. If you are surrounded by difficult people, develop emotional control. If you have failed publicly, develop humility. If you have been underestimated, develop competence. If you have lost something, develop the ability to continue without it. The situation becomes your training ground. You do not need perfect conditions. You need disciplined responses. That is the difference between wishing and building. Weakness says, I will become disciplined when life gets easier. Strength says, I will become disciplined because life is difficult. That is the shift. The practice of amor fati. For the next 7 days, whenever something goes wrong, do not immediately complain. Pause. Acknowledge what happened, then ask 3 questions. What happened? State the facts without the emotional story. What can I control? Separate your responsibility from everything else. What can this teach me? Find the training. Maybe it teaches patience, maybe preparation, maybe boundaries, maybe courage, maybe humility, maybe resilience, maybe the need to change direction. Then take 1 action, not 10. 1. Because acceptance without action becomes passivity. Action without acceptance becomes resistance. You need both. Accept reality, then act within it. It happened. Now use it. Stop wasting pain. You cannot always prevent pain, but you can prevent some pain from being wasted. A failure can become experience. A rejection can become direction. A betrayal can become discernment. A setback can become resilience. A difficult person can become training. A loss can clarify priorities. This does not make the event good. It makes your response valuable. And that distinction matters. You do not have to love the obstacle. You have to use it. You do not have to celebrate the setback. You have to learn from it. You do not have to pretend the pain is pleasant. You have to refuse to let the pain be meaningless. Use the obstacle. Turn resistance into training. Make reality work for you. That is amor fati. Not loving everything that happens, but refusing to waste what happens. This is the material. Think about your life differently now. Your circumstances are material. Your difficulties are material. Your disappointments are material. Your failures are material. Your frustrations are material. The question is not whether the material is perfect. The question is what you build with it. A sculptor does not complain that the stone is difficult. The stone is the material. A disciplined person does not demand that every circumstance be comfortable. The circumstance becomes the material. You lose, learn. You fail, improve. You are rejected, adapt. You are criticized, examine. You are delayed, practice patience. You are challenged, become stronger. This is the material. This is the training. Keep moving. And when you feel the old resistance returning, when your mind starts saying, "This shouldn't have happened," stop. Take a breath. Look at reality. Say, "It happened." Then ask, "What can this become?" That is your new response. Not denial, not bitterness, not helplessness. Transformation. The Stoics knew that you cannot always choose the circumstances placed in front of you, but you can choose what kind of person those circumstances produce. Now you do too. So stop fighting the fact. Stop replaying what cannot be changed. Stop spending your life negotiating with the past. Accept the reality in front of you. Then use it. It happened. Now use it. What can this become? You have learned to stop reacting. You have learned to control what belongs to you. You have learned to pause. You have learned to use silence. You have learned to expect difficulty. And now you are learning something deeper. You do not need reality to cooperate before you can remain strong. But there is one final perspective that can make even your biggest problems look different. Because sometimes you are not suffering only because something happened. You are suffering because you are looking at it from too close. You are trapped inside one moment, one argument, one failure, one rejection, one problem. The next discipline is to step back, to widen your perspective, to see your life from above. Chapter 8. Remember death and stop wasting your life. There is something you do every single day. You spend your life, not your money, not your energy, your life. Every minute that passes is gone permanently. You can earn money again. You can rebuild a career. You can replace possessions. You can recover from mistakes. But you cannot recover yesterday. And yet most people spend their limited time reacting to things that will barely matter tomorrow. An insult, a comment, a delayed message, someone else's opinion, a meaningless argument, a social media post, a comparison. a moment of embarrassment, a desire to prove themselves. They give hours to things that deserve seconds. Then they say they do not have enough time. The problem is not always time. The problem is what they give their time to. This is where the Stoic practice of memento mori becomes powerful. Remember that you will die. Not as a depressing thought, not as an obsession, as a correction, a reminder, a filter. You are here temporarily. Your time is being spent right now, and once it is spent, it is gone. So ask yourself, is this worth my life? Because every reaction costs something. Every argument costs something. Every hour of resentment costs something. Every night spent replaying an insult costs something. You are not just losing an hour. You are spending a piece of your existence. Your time is leaving. Do not waste it on what does not matter. Your time is being spent right now. Imagine someone insults you at 3 p.m. The insult lasts 5 seconds, but you think about it for the rest of the day. You replay their words. You imagine what you should have said. You imagine confronting them tomorrow. You imagine everyone realizing that you were right. You become angry again, then again, then again. The person who insulted you may have forgotten the conversation. You have given them 6 hours of your life. Think about that. They took 5 seconds. You donated 6 hours. This is how emotional reactivity becomes expensive, not financially, existentially. You are spending your life on things that do not deserve it. Maybe you spend an evening scrolling, one video, then another, then another. You look at the clock. 2 hours are gone. What did you build? Nothing. Maybe you spend another hour comparing your life to someone else's, their career, their body, their relationship, their success, their lifestyle. And suddenly your own life feels inadequate. But what happened? Nothing to your actual circumstances. You simply spent your attention comparing your reality to a carefully selected image of someone else's. Your time is leaving. Your time is leaving. This is why discipline matters. Discipline is not only about productivity. It is about protecting your existence from being consumed by trivial things. You do not have unlimited time. You do not know exactly how much time you have. So stop behaving as if you do. Memento mori as a wake-up call. The Stoics repeatedly reflected on mortality. Marcus Aurelius did not treat death as an abstract philosophical concept. He used the awareness of mortality to create urgency around how a person should live. The point was not, "You are going to die, so nothing matters." The point was the opposite. You are going to die, so what you do matters. Your relationships matter. Your character matters. Your attention matters. Your decisions matter. Your time matters. The awareness of death removes some of the illusions that control you. You suddenly realize that impressing everyone is not a serious life goal. Winning every argument is not a serious life goal. Being admired by strangers is not a serious life goal. Proving that you were right 5 years ago is not a serious life goal. Spending your evening angry about a comment from someone online is certainly not a serious life goal. Mortality gives you perspective. It asks, what actually deserves my life? That is the question. Now take the Stoic practice of the view from above. Imagine rising above your current situation. Higher, higher. Look at your room, your home, your neighborhood, your city, your country. Then imagine seeing millions of people moving through their own lives. Everyone has problems. Everyone has ambitions. Everyone has fears. Everyone thinks their current situation is enormous. Then go higher. Look at the world. Your current argument becomes smaller. Your embarrassment becomes smaller. The email you are obsessing over becomes smaller. The person who ignored your message becomes smaller. The mistake you made becomes smaller. The status competition becomes smaller. This does not mean your problems are meaningless. It means you have been looking at them from too close. Zoom out. Put it in perspective. Will this matter? Imagine you made an embarrassing mistake at work. Right now it feels enormous. You replay it. You feel ashamed. You assume everyone noticed. Now zoom out. Will you remember this in 5 years? Will the people involved remember? Will this determine the quality of your life? Probably not. Then why are you giving it so much emotional energy? Learn from it, correct it, move forward. That is perspective. Not denial. Perspective. The view from above and status. The modern world constantly tells you to measure yourself. Who has more money? Who has more followers? Who has the better body? Who has the better house? Who has the better career? Who is more successful? Who is ahead? This creates an endless competition, and the competition has no finish line. There will always be someone richer, someone more attractive, someone more successful, someone younger, someone more popular, someone further ahead. If your peace depends on winning that competition, you have created a game you can never finish. Zoom out. Your life is not a leaderboard. Your value is not a number. Your character is not measured by someone else's success. Marcus Aurelius was an emperor. He occupied one of the most powerful positions in the ancient world, yet Stoic philosophy repeatedly pulled him back toward the temporary nature of status. Power passes, fame passes, possessions pass, bodies change, reputations change, generations disappear. What remains important is how you use the time you actually have. That is the filter. Use mortality as a filter. Now make this practical. The next time you feel yourself becoming emotionally reactive, ask 3 questions. Will I care about this tomorrow? Maybe, maybe not. Then ask, will I care about this next month? The emotional intensity may already be decreasing. Then ask, will I care about this 5 years from now? Suddenly, the situation looks different. Maybe you will. If so, address it. If someone is harming you, establish a boundary. If your career is going in the wrong direction, change it. If your health is deteriorating, act. If a relationship is broken, have the conversation. Mortality does not mean ignoring important problems. It means distinguishing important problems from meaningless emotional noise. That distinction is everything. A serious problem deserves action. A trivial problem does not deserve your entire evening. A valuable relationship deserves attention. A stranger's opinion may not. Your health deserves discipline. Your ego may not. Your future deserves planning. Someone else's judgment may not. Choose what deserves your life. Stop spending your life on revenge. One of the biggest wastes of time is revenge. You imagine someone regretting what they did. You imagine them failing. You imagine proving them wrong. You imagine the moment they finally realize your value, and while you are imagining all of this, your life is continuing without you. They are living. You are replaying. They are moving. You are watching the past. That is not power, that is attachment. The strongest response to someone who underestimated you is not spending 5 years trying to impress them. It is building a life that no longer requires their recognition. Let them think whatever they want. Let them misunderstand. Let them underestimate. Your time is too expensive. Do not spend your life reacting. Build, learn, train, create, love, serve, improve, live. That is the revenge against wasted time. Life is short. Use it. You do not need to become obsessed with death. You need to become less distracted by things that do not matter. Every morning, remember, you are here temporarily. Every evening, remember, another day is gone. Not to create fear, to create urgency. What did you spend today on? Did you spend it building or reacting? Did you spend it creating or comparing? Did you spend it with people you love or arguing with people who do not matter? Did you spend it becoming stronger or monitoring everyone else's life? Did you spend it on your future or replaying your past? These questions are uncomfortable. Good. Use the discomfort, because the goal is not to make you afraid of death. The goal is to make you more serious about life. Life is short. Choose what deserves your life. Do not spend your life reacting. Your final filter. From now on, before giving something your emotional energy, ask, does this deserve my time? Does this deserve my attention? Does this deserve my anger? Does this deserve my anxiety? Does this deserve an hour of my life? Does this deserve another thought? If the answer is no, release it. You do not need closure from every situation. You do not need an explanation for every disappointment. You do not need to win every argument. You do not need everyone to understand you. You do not need to respond to everything. You have something more valuable than the last word. You have time, and time is disappearing. Every second, every minute, every day. You cannot pause it. You cannot negotiate with it. You cannot buy it back. So protect it. Protect your attention. Protect your energy. Protect your character. Protect the people who matter. Protect the work that matters. And stop giving pieces of your life to things that will be forgotten. Zoom out. Put it in perspective. Will this matter? The Stoics knew that mortality could make a person more awake. Now you do too. You do not need to fear death. You need to stop wasting life. That is the lesson. And once you understand that your time is limited, something changes. You become more selective. You stop chasing every argument. You stop reacting to every insult. You stop needing every person to approve of you. You stop wasting hours trying to control what cannot be controlled. You start asking better questions. What matters? What deserves my attention? What deserves my energy? What deserves my life? And then you act accordingly. Because discipline is not simply the ability to say no to temptation. Discipline is the ability to say yes to what matters. Yes to your purpose. Yes to your character. Yes to your work. Yes to the people you love. Yes to the life you still have. Your time is leaving. Do not waste it on what does not matter. You have learned to stop reacting. You have learned to control what belongs to you. You have learned to pause. You have learned silence. You have learned to expect difficulty. You have learned to use obstacles. And now you understand the cost of wasting your limited time. But knowing what matters is not enough. You must build a life that makes disciplined behavior easier. A life with structure. A morning that belongs to you, an evening that teaches you. Habits that reinforce your identity, and routines that make self-control automatic. Because the final level of discipline is not controlling yourself once. It is building yourself every day. Chapter 9. Build a life that does not require constant reaction. If your life is chaotic, your emotions will constantly be asked to respond to that chaos. If you wake up late, immediately check your phone, consume other people's opinions, rush through the morning, ignore your priorities, spend the day reacting to messages, and end the night scrolling until you fall asleep, do not be surprised when your mind feels unstable. You cannot build emotional control inside a life designed around impulse. Your environment matters. Your routines matter. Your mornings matter. Your evenings matter. The small things you repeat every day eventually become the person you are. This is why discipline cannot be something you practice only when you are angry. It cannot appear only when someone insults you. It cannot appear only when life becomes difficult. You need to build a life that makes discipline normal. A life where you do not constantly have to fight yourself. A life where your attention has structure. A life where your priorities are decided before the world starts demanding them. A life where you regularly examine your behavior. And a life where emotional control becomes less of an emergency response and more of a permanent identity. Practice creates identity. Discipline becomes character. Become the person who stays composed. Build morning control. Your morning is more important than you think, because the first thing you give your attention to often determines the direction of your mind. You wake up, you reach for your phone, a notification, another message, another headline, another video, another person's opinion. And before you have even thought about your own life, you are already consuming someone else's. You have allowed the outside world to enter before you have decided what matters. Then you spend the rest of the day trying to regain control. Stop. Win the first hour. You do not need a perfect morning, you need an intentional one. Wake up. Do not immediately consume. Sit. Think. Move your body, drink water, review your priorities. Decide what matters today. Then enter the external world. The sequence matters. Wake, think, move, choose, then respond. This creates a psychological difference. Instead of waking up asking, "What does everyone else want from me?" you begin asking, "What do I need to do today?" Instead of allowing notifications to determine your attention, you determine your attention first. Instead of reacting to the world, you establish direction before entering it. Choose your direction before the world chooses it for you. That is the discipline. The first hour is a declaration. Think about what your morning communicates to your own mind. If you repeatedly wake up and immediately surrender yourself to distraction, you are teaching yourself something. You are teaching, "My impulses come first." If you repeatedly delay important work because something more entertaining appears, you are teaching, "My comfort comes first." If you repeatedly ignore your priorities because someone else demands attention, you are teaching, "Everyone else's agenda matters more than mine." You may never say these things out loud, but behavior teaches the mind. Every morning is a vote for discipline, or a vote for impulse. You do not need to win the entire day at 6 in the morning. You simply need to start correctly. Make your bed, exercise, read, plan, write, pray, or reflect if that is part of your practice. Choose one meaningful task. The exact routine can vary, the principle does not. Own your attention before the world asks for it. Marcus Aurelius understood the importance of repeatedly returning himself to his responsibilities rather than allowing external distractions to dictate his inner direction. He was surrounded by demands. You are too. The difference is that your battlefield looks different. Your battlefield may be your phone, your inbox, your notifications, your social media feed, your endless list of small obligations. The principle remains the same. You must decide what deserves your attention. Win the first hour. Build evening reflection. Morning discipline gives your day direction. Evening reflection gives your day meaning. Most people finish the day and immediately escape. Entertainment, scrolling, videos, music, more stimulation, then sleep, then repeat. There is no examination, no correction, no learning. That is a missed opportunity. The Stoics placed enormous value on self-examination. Seneca, for example, used regular reflection as a way of reviewing his own behavior and identifying where he had failed to live according to his standards. The principle is simple. You need to look at yourself honestly. Not cruelly, honestly. At the end of the day, ask, where did I react unnecessarily? Where did I remain calm? Where did I allow someone else's behavior to control me? Where did I waste my attention? Where did I act according to my principles? Where did I compromise them? What should I repeat tomorrow? What should I change? This is not self-punishment. It is correction. Review, correct, return stronger tomorrow. That is the discipline. You do not need to hate yourself for making a mistake. You need to learn from it. If you lost your temper, study the trigger. If you wasted 2 hours online, identify what happened before the distraction. If you avoided an important task, ask why. If you remained calm during a difficult conversation, recognize what you did correctly. Reflection turns experience into training. Without reflection, you repeat. With reflection, you improve. Stop measuring the day by productivity alone. There is another mistake. People think a successful day is simply a productive day. It is not. You can complete 10 tasks and still behave badly. You can make money and still be controlled by your emotions. You can work 12 hours and still spend the entire day reacting to other people. A disciplined day is not only measured by output, it is measured by conduct. Did you control your attention? Did you keep your commitments? Did you manage your emotions? Did you speak with intention? Did you avoid unnecessary conflict? Did you act according to your standards? Did you do what you said you would do? These are character measurements. These are character measurements, because the ultimate goal is not to become a machine that produces more. The goal is to become a person who governs themselves better. Review, correct, return stronger tomorrow. Make non-reaction a habit. Now comes the most important part. You cannot depend on motivation. Motivation disappears. Mood changes, energy changes, Discipline means the behavior continues when the feeling changes. You pause when you are angry. You still pause when you are tired. You filter criticism when you feel confident. You still filter it when you feel insecure. You protect your attention when you are motivated. You still protect it when you are bored. You reflect when the day was successful. You also reflect when the day was terrible. Repetition turns conscious effort into automatic behavior. At first, the pause feels unnatural. Then it becomes familiar. At first, silence feels uncomfortable. Then it becomes normal. At first, waking without your phone feels strange. Then it becomes your standard. At first, reviewing your day feels unnecessary. Then you begin noticing patterns you never saw before. That is how habits become identity. Practice creates identity. The identity shift. Eventually, you stop saying, "I am trying to control my emotions," and you start thinking, "I am someone who controls my reactions." That difference is enormous. One is a temporary activity, the other is identity. You do not want to spend your life constantly asking, "Should I be disciplined today?" You want discipline to become the default. You do not want to negotiate with yourself every morning about whether you will exercise. You want exercise to be part of who you are. You do not want to debate every time someone provokes you about whether you should react. You want composure to be your standard. You do not want to think about whether you should protect your attention. You want distraction to feel abnormal. This is how transformation happens, not through one dramatic moment, through repetition. One morning, one pause, one controlled response, one evening review, one difficult decision, then another, until the behavior becomes identity. Practice creates identity. Discipline becomes character. Become the person who stays composed. Design your environment. Do not rely entirely on willpower. Design your environment. If your phone destroys your attention, put it somewhere else. If social media consumes your mornings, remove it from the first hour. If notifications constantly interrupt your work, turn them off. If certain conversations repeatedly trigger you, create boundaries. If your workspace is chaotic, organize it. If you want to read, keep the book visible. If you want to exercise, prepare your equipment in advance. Make the disciplined action easier. Make the impulsive action harder. This is practical Stoicism. You are not trying to control the entire world. You are controlling the conditions that you can influence. That is the dichotomy of control applied to daily life. You cannot control every distraction, but you can control whether your phone is sitting beside you. You cannot control every demand, but you can control when you check messages. You cannot control other people's emotions, but you can control how much access you give them to your attention. Control what is yours. Build around it. Create your daily operating system. Your day does not need to be complicated. Build a simple operating system. Morning. What matters today? During the day, what deserves my attention right now? When triggered, pause. Observe, then choose. When distracted, return. When something goes wrong, what can I control now? Evening. What did I learn? That is enough. You do not need 50 rules. You need a few rules that you actually follow. Because complexity creates excuses. Simplicity creates consistency. Your system should make one thing clear. I am responsible for my response. When the day goes wrong, your discipline will be tested. You will oversleep. You will lose focus. Someone will upset you. You will waste time. You will make a mistake. You will break a promise to yourself. When that happens, do not turn one mistake into an identity crisis. Do not say, "I failed today, so I am undisciplined." No. Correct it. Return. That is the discipline. One bad hour does not require a bad day. One bad day does not require a bad week. One mistake does not require surrender. Return. That word matters. Return to the routine. Return to the standard. Return to the work. Return to yourself. This is how resilient people operate. They do not expect perfection. They expect themselves to return. Your daily discipline checklist. At the end of each day, ask yourself 5 questions. Did I control my attention? Did I pause before reacting? Did I spend my time on what matters? Did I act according to my principles? Did I return when I lost control? If you can answer honestly, you are training. Not performing, training. Some days will be excellent, some days will be terrible, but every day gives you another repetition, and repetition is what creates character. Practice creates identity. Discipline becomes character. Become the person who stays composed. Build a life that supports your mind. You have spent this entire audiobook learning how to stop reacting. But understand this, you cannot separate emotional control from lifestyle. Sleep matters, exercise matters, work matters, environment matters, attention matters, relationships matter, rest matters. What you repeatedly consume matters. If you spend 6 hours every day consuming outrage, comparison, fear, and distraction, then spend 5 minutes trying to meditate away the consequences, you are fighting your own environment. Change the environment, protect the mind, build structure. The disciplined person does not constantly ask, "How do I become stronger in this moment?" They ask, "How do I build a life that makes strength easier?" That is a better question. The final shift. Eventually, the goal is not to have fewer emotional reactions because you are forcing yourself to suppress them. The goal is to build a person who naturally creates space before acting. You become slower to anger, slower to speak, slower to judge, slower to surrender attention, but faster to return, faster to correct, faster to act, faster to focus. That is maturity. You are no longer controlled by the speed of the world. You establish your own pace. Win the first hour. Protect the day. Review the evening. Return when you drift. And repeat. Every day. Because eventually the discipline stops feeling like something you do, it becomes something you are. You wake up with intention. You move with purpose. You respond instead of reacting. You protect your attention. You reflect instead of blaming. You correct instead of complaining. You return instead of quitting. That is the transformation. The Stoics knew that character is built through repeated choices. Now you do too. Practice creates identity. Discipline becomes character. Become the person who stays composed. And now you are approaching the final level. Because all of these practices, attention, control, pausing, silence, preparation, acceptance, perspective, and routine, lead to one final question. Who are you when nobody is forcing you to be disciplined? That is where real character is revealed. The final step is not simply learning to react less. It is becoming the kind of person whose principles are stronger than their impulses. Someone who does not need external pressure to stay disciplined. Someone who does not need applause to keep going. Someone who does not need perfect circumstances to remain steady. Someone who governs themselves. Chapter 10. Become the person nothing can manipulate. You have spent this entire journey learning how to stop reacting. You learn to protect your attention. You learn the difference between what you control and what you do not. You learn to pause before emotion becomes action. You learned the power of silence. You learned to expect difficulty. You learned to use obstacles. You learned to remember that your time is limited. And you learned to build daily habits that reinforce discipline. But now comes the final question. What are you becoming? Because the goal was never simply to become calmer. The goal was never simply to stop arguing. The goal was never simply to control anger. The goal was never to become emotionless. The real goal is much deeper. The goal is to become internally governed. A person whose behavior is determined by principles rather than impulses. A person who can feel pressure without surrendering to pressure. A person who can experience rejection without abandoning self-respect. A person who can receive criticism without collapsing. A person who can experience success without becoming arrogant. A person who can face uncertainty without becoming desperate. A person who does not need the outside world to behave perfectly before they can remain steady. That is Stoic strength. That is emotional mastery. That is the person you are building. Make your character the standard. Most people make one question the center of their decision-making. How do I feel? How do I feel about this? Do I feel motivated? Do I feel respected? Do I feel appreciated? Do I feel confident? Do I feel like doing the work? Do I feel angry? Do I feel afraid? But feelings change constantly. If your decisions depend on feelings, your behavior will constantly change with them. Instead, ask a different question. What would the disciplined version of me do right now? That question changes everything. You are tired. What would the disciplined version of you do? You are angry. What would the disciplined version of you do? You want to quit. What would the disciplined version of you do? Someone provokes you. What would the disciplined version of you do? Someone criticizes you. What would the disciplined version of you do? You have an opportunity to take the easy way out. What would the disciplined version of you do? Now you have a standard. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly brought his attention back to the kind of person he should be, rather than allowing circumstances to dictate his conduct. That is the principle. Your values become the operating system. When emotion changes, your values remain. When circumstances change, your principles remain. When other people change, your standards remain. Character over impulse, principle over emotion, discipline over reaction. That is the discipline. Become difficult to manipulate. Understand how manipulation works. It does not always look obvious. Sometimes manipulation is simply someone discovering what makes you react. If anger controls you, they provoke your anger. If insecurity controls you, they question your worth. If validation controls you, they give you attention and then withdraw it. If fear controls you, they create urgency. If your ego controls you, they challenge your status. If you desperately need to prove yourself, they give you something to prove. Once they understand your trigger, they understand your behavior. And if they understand your behavior, they can predict you. That is why emotional discipline is not just about peace, it is about freedom. Imagine someone knows that you cannot tolerate being disrespected. They make a small comment. You react. Now they know exactly how to control the conversation. Or someone knows you desperately want their approval. They become distant. You chase them. They give attention. You relax. They withdraw it again. Now your emotional state moves according to their behavior. That is not freedom. That is dependency. But when you recognize the trigger, something changes. Someone provokes you, you pause. Someone withdraws approval, you remain steady. Someone tries to create urgency, you slow down. Someone attacks your ego, you do not rush to prove yourself. Someone tries to make you afraid, you examine the facts. They can provoke you, but they cannot control you. Say it again. They can provoke you, but they cannot control you. You decide. You have a choice. Stop giving people your buttons. Think of every emotional trigger as a button. Anger, fear, jealousy, approval, rejection, ego, urgency. Someone pushes the button, you react. That is predictable. The goal is not to pretend the button does not exist. The goal is to stop allowing the button to control your behavior. Someone says something insulting. You notice the anger. Pause. Someone questions your ability. You notice the insecurity. Pause. Someone ignores you. You notice the desire for validation. Pause. Someone creates an artificial emergency. You notice the pressure. Pause. Then ask, what response serves my character? Not what response will make me feel powerful. Not what response will make them regret it. Not what response will prove I am right. What response serves your character? That question protects you, because manipulation often succeeds by making you act against your own standards. You become angry and say something cruel. You become insecure and chase approval. You become afraid and abandon your principles. You become desperate and make a bad decision. The manipulation succeeds because you surrendered your decision-making process. Take it back. You decide. You have a choice. The Stoic does not need perfect conditions. This is where every chapter comes together. The dichotomy of control taught you to separate your responsibility from external events. Negative visualization taught you to anticipate difficulty. Amor fati taught you to work with reality rather than endlessly resisting it. Memento mori reminded you that your time is limited. The view from above taught you to put temporary problems into perspective. Silence taught you to stop giving every emotion a voice. The pause taught you to create space between feeling and action. Daily discipline taught you to repeat these principles until they become character. Now combine them. Something goes wrong, you ask, what is mine to control? You anticipate difficulty. You accept the reality. You put the situation into perspective. You protect your time. You pause. You choose your response. Then you act. That is the system. That is the operating principle. Control what is yours. Accept what is not. Choose your response. Become unshaken. You are not trying to become emotionless. This distinction must remain clear. Stoicism is not emotional deadness. You will still feel anger. You will still experience fear. You will still experience grief. You will still feel disappointment. You will still become frustrated. You will still experience joy. The difference is authority. Your emotions can speak. They do not get the final vote. You can listen to anger without obeying it. You can listen to fear without surrendering to it. You can acknowledge sadness without allowing it to define your identity. You can enjoy success without becoming dependent on success. You can experience rejection without deciding that you are worthless. This is emotional maturity. not less feeling, better governance, character over impulse, principle over emotion, discipline over reaction. Become the person you can trust. There is one person you must ultimately learn to trust: yourself. Not the version of yourself who makes promises when motivated, the version who keeps those promises when motivation disappears. Can you trust yourself to pause? Can you trust yourself to walk away from unnecessary conflict? Can you trust yourself to keep working when nobody applauds? Can you trust yourself to admit when you are wrong? Can you trust yourself to control your attention? Can you trust yourself not to chase approval? Can you trust yourself to remain disciplined when circumstances become difficult? That is real confidence. Not thinking you are better than everyone else, knowing that you can rely on your own conduct. You become internally stable. You become dependable to yourself. And once you trust your own discipline, external validation loses much of its power. You no longer need someone else to tell you that you are strong. Your behavior proves it. The final Stoic synthesis: so remember the entire system. When something happens, do not immediately react. Pause. Ask what you control. Release what you cannot control. Expect difficulty. Prepare without fear. Accept reality. Use the obstacle. Zoom out. Remember your time is limited. Protect your attention. Speak when speech serves you. Remain silent when reaction would only feed your ego. Return to your principles. Then act. Again. And again. And again. This is how a person becomes unshaken. Not because life becomes predictable, because the person becomes reliable. Not because other people become easier, because you become harder to manipulate. Not because emotions disappear, because you stop giving emotions automatic authority. Not because problems stop coming, because you stop requiring perfect conditions to remain disciplined. Control what is yours. Accept what is not. Choose your response. Become unshaken. The final test. Your transformation will not be tested when everything is comfortable. It will be tested when someone insults you, when someone rejects you, when someone misunderstands you, when something you worked for disappears, when your plans fail, when you are tired, when you are afraid, when nobody is watching. That is the test. And in those moments, remember everything you have learned. You have a choice. You always have a choice. Maybe you cannot choose the event, but you can choose the response. Maybe you cannot control the person, but you can control yourself. Maybe you cannot change the past, but you can decide what the past produces in you. Maybe you cannot guarantee the future, but you can control what you do today. That is enough. More than enough. Because a person who governs themselves does not need to control the entire world. They only need to remain responsible for their own side of the line. Become the person nothing can easily move. Imagine the person you become after practicing this for years. Someone insults you, you remain calm. Someone praises you, you remain grounded. Someone rejects you, you continue. Someone accepts you, you remain yourself. A plan fails, you adapt. A plan succeeds, you stay disciplined. Someone disagrees, you listen. Someone provokes you, you pause. Someone misunderstands you, you do not panic. Someone tries to manipulate your emotions, you recognize the pattern and you choose. That is freedom. Not freedom from difficulty, freedom from automatic obedience. The world can still challenge you, but it no longer gets to decide who you become. They can provoke you, but they cannot control you. You decide. You have a choice. That is the discipline. The person you are building. Do not leave this audiobook thinking you have simply learned some Stoic ideas. You have been given a way to live. Protect your attention. Control what belongs to you. Pause before reacting. Use silence. Expect difficulty. Prepare for uncertainty. Accept reality. Use obstacles. Remember your mortality. Build disciplined routines and govern yourself. Every day, not perfectly, consistently, because the goal is not perfection, the goal is direction. Every time you pause instead of reacting, you strengthen yourself. Every time you release what you cannot control, you strengthen yourself. Every time you choose principle over impulse, you strengthen yourself. Every time you keep your word when nobody is watching, you strengthen yourself. Every time you return after failure, you strengthen yourself. Practice creates identity. Discipline becomes character. Character becomes freedom. And eventually, something changes. You stop asking, how do I control everything around me? You start asking, how do I govern myself regardless of what happens? That is the question that matters. Because you cannot control the world. You never could. You cannot control other people. You never will. You cannot control every outcome. You cannot control every loss. You cannot control every disappointment. But you can control your conduct. You can control your attention. You can control your choices. You can control your response. And that is where your power has always been. Control what is yours. Accept what is not. Choose your response. Become unshaken. The Stoics did not promise you an easy life. They offered something more valuable. A way to become stronger than the conditions you cannot control. Now it is your turn. The next time you are provoked, pause. The next time you are rejected, stand. The next time you are criticized, examine. The next time you fail, learn. The next time someone tries to manipulate you, recognize the trigger. The next time life refuses to cooperate, accept the reality and act within it. Do not surrender your mind. Do not surrender your attention. Do not surrender your character. And above all, do not surrender your response. Because the world will keep moving, people will keep changing, problems will keep appearing, life will remain unpredictable. Let it. You do not need a predictable world, you need a disciplined self. You need a mind that can pause, a character that can endure, a perspective that can widen, a discipline that can continue. A person who can remain steady when everything around them is unstable. That is the person you are building. That is the person nothing can easily manipulate. And that is the final lesson. You do not become powerful by controlling everything. You become powerful by becoming impossible to control from the outside. Control what is yours. Accept what is not. Choose your response. Protect your attention. Protect your time. Protect your character. And when the world tries to pull you into reaction, pause. Breathe, observe, Choose, then move forward. Become unshaken. Become disciplined. Become governed from within. And never again give someone else the power to decide who you become. You do not need to control everything. You need to control yourself. You cannot control what people say. Control how you receive it. You cannot control what people do. Control what you do next. You cannot control rejection. Control your preparation. You cannot control criticism. Control your character. You cannot control the future. Control the action in front of you. Pause before you react. Observe before you judge. Think before you speak. Accept what you cannot change. Use every obstacle as training. Protect your attention. Protect your time. Protect your peace. Because every unnecessary reaction is a small surrender of your freedom. And every deliberate response is a vote for the person you are becoming. This is the Stoic discipline. Not becoming emotionless, becoming governed. Not becoming passive, becoming deliberate. Not avoiding life. Becoming strong enough to face life without being controlled by it. So the next time someone provokes you, pause. The next time something goes wrong, pause. The next time you feel the urge to prove yourself, pause. And ask yourself one question. Who is in control right now? Then choose. Choose discipline, choose character, choose yourself. Because the person who controls their reactions eventually controls the direction of their life. Now stop reacting. Start governing yourself.